See if this thing is firing on all cylinders. Hey, we got Space Valk. How is everybody this morning? Howdy, howdy. Pog. Guess that's all on the other side. I was just updating all the maps to get everything appropriately cleared out on the main map wall. No, this appears to be the opposite side. Okay. So I've updated this, updated this, updated that. That one's good. That one's good. That one is good. This one. Okay, those three I've yet to update. What are these three? Hey, who did that? Did I finish the redstone door? Yeah, it wasn't quite how I wanted it to be, but I did at least finish it. Oh, thank you, Mary. Mary, go. How's my day going? It's going great so far. It's actually morning still for me, but you know, it's going well overall. I'm gonna wait for a few more people to filter in. I'm going to resume my TED Talk from the other night. It was only night before last. Yeah, I'm gonna recount all of the stuff that I've been doing. Pretty much, I think I'm going to end up saying or talking about or addressing at some point pretty much the entirety of my 2B2T history. And we'll fly into one of those airlocks shortly. Just as soon as I can get all the damn end stone islands and stuff erased on these maps. Oh, I just saw it update. We're close. Thank you so much for donating, Marie. Mary, am I saying it right? Okay. These appear to be, yeah, right here. How is everyone? Did I finish the redstone door? Yes. You will see very shortly just how unfortunate that poor door is. It's not like it was that bad, just I would have loved for it to work out the way I wanted to, but it just, that whole project just became a monster. I had to put it down. Not that it couldn't be done, but like what I wanted it to do just kept growing in scope, and I kept realizing just how much more I would have to change. And I was just like, you know what? It's easier to make it stay manual. Manual-ish. Alright, cool. So that's all these. Whoopsie. What am I doing? I'm updating all those old maps because I want to have the map room here be as up to date as possible. And by gosh golly, I think I done did it. Alright. It's looking nice and clean, you can tell. Very distinctly, you know, all the stuff, that even the airlocks, like right here. Even those are on there. Now, unfortunately, the white glass covering over everything, that just kind of ruined it a little bit. I got a good suggestion to remove it all, as whoops, as interesting as that would be. Aha, I didn't update this one. To remove it all and remove the top layer of the glass and then update what's underneath it so that it will reflect on the maps, update all the maps, and then put the white glass back over it. And I could see a lot of problems happening with that. So I don't necessarily think I want to do that. Because like it has to have some sort of a covering over the top, or otherwise it's not going to look good. It's not going to make sense. I know, making sense in Minecraft. But oh well, what can you do? Okay, so that is northwest of here. Let me get this one last thing. Yeah, it is beautiful, isn't it? Should build apartments. I already did that. I might make another apartment building at some point, but for the most part, there we go. There we go, there we go, there we go. For the most part, I would say that's pretty well finished. Okay. So they changed how hitboxes render. I don't know if I like it or not. I, of course, also... There we go. I also copied the map and flipped it to the back side here. So, you know, that's that, I suppose. I'm happy this fit as neatly as it did. I thought about, because a lot of people were like, well, what are you going to put on the opposite corner to balance it out? And I thought about that, and I realized that, you know, I just want a massive, maximum zoom level 4 map that just encompasses the whole area. But good golly, this thing is a pain in the ass to attempt to update, so I might get back to that. I might scrap that. I really do not know right now. Also, let me... No, render distances... Okay. Yeah, it's just because I'm in the pillar that it's all framey. I need Optifine badly. Optifine, come back to me. Oh well. Can we live in the apartments? Yeah, kinda. If you call that living. But man, just look at this. Look at this view. Look at all the city you can see starting to loom into view. It's crazy. Okay. Obsidian. Red stained glass. I guess I deleted some items without meaning to. Water buckets. Geronimo. Now then, kind of wanted to give a nice little walk around to the whole place, but predominantly what I want to do, if I can remember where I put them, the water tubing. Oh, and also I will show off the airlock real fast. I wanted to lay more water tubes everywhere. Okay, 34. I guess that's enough people for now. Okay, so where did I leave off? So yeah, you have to step on each individual pressure plate to advance it. pretty straightforward. I did have a space under here. Suppose I could have made this, you know, like maybe hook it up to a button instead of a pressure plate. Actually, yeah, I think I'm going to do that. But yeah, it, yes, okay, I remember where I was now. So, the lands. How did all that get started and when? So, the number one reason I ran out to the millions the first time was basically Housemaster deleted my really crappy, but you know, it was my end base, despite how crappy it was, you know. Nobody wants their shit being essentially deleted simply because Housemaster is a cruel god. And so I just had to make do. This isn't gonna work that way. I had to make do with the fact that my base was gone. But Housemaster assured me, because, you know, you can trust Housemaster. He assured me that we wouldn't, or that we could get the end back. Now remember, this was in 2012, so we didn't quite know that that's not exactly how things would go. But he assured me we would get the end back if Mojang added stronghold generation to the world gen. And I guess on some level that was true. He probably intended to do that. But it didn't end up happening that way, as we will see later. House was even House can buckle, I found. It's rare, but even Housemaster can buckle. So I mentioned last time an event known as the bitching. This was funny because it was the one time I saw Housemaster crumble to any sort of player demand. It was actually quite refreshing. Okay, so that should open this. Damn it. Okay. Why you no function? And so, until that happened, and it took about a year of people bitching for House to finally reopen the end. But when it did... Oh, this fires these pistons, no wonder. Okay. And when it finally did, Housemaster basically... He had to delete like 3 or 4 of the chunks where the end portals would naturally have spawned. And this also led to a bit of player outcry, because people didn't want him, you know, editing the terrain and shit like that. And I guess I understand, but at the same time, it ended up giving us the end. And that's ultimately what people wanted, so it was just sort of like, you know, you can't have it both ways, guys. Like, it's either one or the other. But I'm getting a tad bit ahead of myself. So, I ran out to 4.4 million by 4.5 million. My original goal was 10 million by 10 million. Perfect. But I ended up running for nearly 2 weeks on the nether roof. This is back when you could run on the nether roof. And let me tell you, oh my god, that was the single most boring, tedious, awful, no good, unfun thing I have ever done on 2B2T. To the point where I vowed I would literally never do it again. Until the end of 2013, where I would basically do it again. But, you know, that's just kind of... Looking back, running on the nether roof really wasn't the most tedious thing. Building the disc by hand. even using baritone, building the disc by hand, that took a year. And that was the single most tedious thing I'd ever done on all of 2B2T. It was mind-numbing. But that happened in 2020, and we're getting just a tad bit ahead of ourselves story-wise. So I run on the nether roof for close to 2 weeks. The server has some downtime partway in, and it just made everything so much longer. It hurt. I hurt in my soul. I was not ready for that kind of a commitment. But it did ultimately do me some good, in that I did finally get where I wanted to go. Or so I thought. For you see... Oh shit. Wrong thing. Don't want that there. For you see, what ended up happening was I made a friend. And this friend would be one of my best friends for a very, very long time. His name was Snacky North, and he loved to shitpost poetry and other crazy shit in chat, and it was absolutely hilarious. And Snacky, bless him... Oh, fuck. Snacky just... There's something special about him. I don't know what. He had this sense of humor, and he had this optimism to him. And he was the first friend that I made on all of 2B2T, exclusively through 2B2T. I didn't know him prior. I had no connections. I had none of that. I just met him, talked with him, got to know him, and he was a cool dude. And despite the motto of, you know, trust no one, honestly, Snacky was one of the few people that I had zero problems trusting. There we go. That's much better. Now it's manual. Now you have to actually open the door between airlock cycles. And then you step on the plate, close it, and it's all good. Whew. Okay. The airlock is done. But yeah, that was how I met Snacky North. Now, why do I go through all the trouble to say all this? Why is Snacky relevant? Well, Snacky would come to be the very first person that I'd ever base with on 2B2T, exclusively through 2B2T. And he asked to base with me, and I was scared out of my mind. Because I was like, I don't know him. Or at least I thought I didn't know him. Do I dare invite this random person to my base? And that ended up being an amazing decision that I'm so very glad that I made. And yeah, he ended up being really cool. Cool. Oh no. Oh shit, did it not capture something? Why, you know? Oh, the redstone, no wonder. Anyway, and it ended up being that Snacky would, in about... Let's see now, I ran on the nether roof in August. So I got to where the lands would be in late August 2012. So, for the next 3 or 4 months, nothing terribly interesting would happen. And then Snacky would... Oh, wait, no, that's right. One interesting thing would happen. The very first exploit... Aha. The very first exploit that I would get to be part of. The book hacks. So in late 2012, some lucky motherfucker figured out Is it morning or evening here? It's morning here. Some lucky motherfucker figured out that NBT tags for written books could be spoofed and manipulated to mimic the NBT tags of diamond enchanted swords. And as a result, you could give a written book any enchantment that you wanted. Now just stop and process that for a second. Any enchantment on a written book. Sounds a little familiar, doesn't it? Oh shit. This is not the first time that books would have so much trouble. Certainly not on 2B2T, certainly not out in the wilds as a whole. But the book hacks was absolutely amazing. I've talked about it like once or twice before. I gave info on it to Fast Vincent and other people. But let me tell you, the book hacks was life-changing. We got the book hacks, and it lasted for a whopping 3 days, 2 days, some really, really brief period of time to just, like, only a handful of people got to use it. Okay, good. Everything is fixed. But the book hacks was absolutely nuts. I can't begin to describe how crazy the book hacks was. It was just some little extra mod that you'd throw into the jar folder, and it worked. It just worked. It worked so well. It was crazy. So, of course, people would abuse the hell out of this. People like X0XP would, they would use the Fortune enchantment. And let me tell you, Fortune on the book hacks was damn near frightening. Oh, fuck. Fortune, when you'd hit a blade of grass, Fortune would cause, I don't know how many thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of these grass, of the seeds, that's it, seed entities would just fly. And they would just crash the server. It was insanity. Absolute insanity. And if you crash the server on the right tick, you could just duplicate items for free. Just the very old crash dupe bugs that pretty well everybody kind of already knew. But it was a reliable, easy way to crash the server, and only a handful of people had the book hacks anyway. And so, yeah, it was absolutely nuts. Book hacks was amazing. Oh my god, just... oh, I cannot praise the book hacks enough. It was single-handedly the most interesting thing I'd ever done up to that point. Huh? Oh shit. No? Fuck you then. So we got to abuse the book hacks for about 2-3 days. And looting. Oh my god, looting. Looting was just nuts. Pigmen. If you killed a pigman. Man, fuck this thing. Anyway, if you killed a pigman using a looting 32k, because, you know, 32k is the highest number you can possibly reach. A pigman killed with looting 32k would drop enough gold nuggets to make 2 stacks of blocks. And in this manner, that's how I got all the crazy items and materials I needed for the first beacon. Because I had no life back then, so I could play 2B2T constantly. And yeah, that's what I did. I would farm wither skulls the hard way, because there was no other way at the time you could get them, and I would just make a beacon, and it was absolutely crazy. And I was one of the first people to ever possess beacons, and it just, oh man, it was so cool. The next major development was trading, with villager trading being a new addition. You could abuse villagers by not allowing their inventories to close. And you could have items that you wanted traded, you know, like steak, or raw steak, rather. I would kill a cow with the looting books, and they would drop so much steak, it would, like, lag my game so badly, I couldn't blink. It was awful. But I put up with it. Because if I had a water stream feeding all the steak into my person, I could sell it all to a villager and make like a double chest of emeralds or some shit. And back then, you know, emeralds were still valuable. Items in general had value, even though this was a massive dupe. And yeah, it made it to where you could buy XP bottles. You could buy... Oh, chainmail. Chainmail was brand new. That was the only way you could get chainmail. And chainmail was considered an illegal item. It was actually quite funny, because if you touched it, it would delete. And people complained to House about that, and you know, eventually he was like, oh, well, I guess you should have chainmail. Not that it was, like, worth anything, it was just fucking chainmail. But it was funny nonetheless. And, yeah, people could abuse villagers for a dupe of some kind that I was never privy to. The dupe got patched super quickly, but, you know, that's how it is. And, yeah, that was the book axe. I initially wanted to use it on wither skeletons, see how many heads they would drop, but sadly, when 1.4 dropped, Bucket patched the book axe forever. And that was the end of that unfortunate but very beautiful exploit. Press F to pay respects. What year did I join 2B2T? That was February 2012. So already, after only about 7 months, I'd already gotten to join in to a really fucking cool, really interesting, and prolific dupe. But this is not the last time we would hear of books and the mischief one could cause with books. Because let me tell you, books were fucky. We had no idea just how fucky books would be. But let me tell you, books would end up being amazing. Oh hey, Gorgon Breath. What's up, man? Thank you. You donate every stream, dude. You're amazing. Oh, but yeah. Books just... fucking shit. Books would come to be one of those things that would be notorious much later. Let's rotate the 180. Fuck. Oh, fuck it. Books and... what was another? Oh, and villager trading would just be... it would be something that would dominate the server for a while. So fast forward about 3 months, and to get me back on track with the main story. So at around this time, Snacky invited a friend to his then famous library base. And Snacky, little did he know, his friend would invite another friend who would invite another friend, and that person would absolutely grief his library. And the next thing he knew, Snacky was out of a home, out of everything. And poor Snacky had no idea who did it or why. But he knew that there was one dude who'd showed up out of nowhere. And he kind of figured that guy was the guy, you know. And so he comes to me and begs me, "Hey Jack, invite me to your base. Like, I don't have anywhere to go. I just got griefed. Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what's going on. Can me and like 2 or 3 other guys come to your base?" And I'm like, 2 or 3 other guys? Who the fuck are they? Like, what? I was kind of okay with him showing up, but 2 to 3 other guys, like, I didn't know who they were. I didn't know who anyone was. Like, I was a new fact back then. 2 to 3 other guys could have griefed me just like Snacky got griefed. Why would I just invite these people? Seemingly out of nowhere. And he's like, "No, man, they're cool. I vouch for them. I swear, they're really okay." And, yeah, they really were. Fucking hell, my fingers. Oops. And those 2 to 3 other guys were Exalted Spartan, Zarviar, and a war guy. And Zarviar and a war guy, specifically, they were absolute invalids. But, like, not in a bad way. They just never really could finish a base. They could barely start any bases that they did. But, like, in a funny roundabout way, that ended up being one of the best things that I could have ever asked for, because having base mates who interfere with whatever you're trying to build, or who have opinions on how you're building it, or think they should take corrective action. Like, there's nothing more infuriating than someone who's like, "No, it should be this way." But it's your base, it's your vision, you're the one who's making it. And, like, having people who will, you know, they're more hands-off and they'll go do their own thing, and they're cool people in and of themselves. That's such a beneficial thing to have. Get base mates who won't interfere with your stuff just because they can. And so that's who Zarviar, a war guy. Exalted Spartans would also build, but he'd like do his own thing to a degree. And like he knew more about what he was doing, I guess is the right way to put it. He was a cool guy. Like, they were all cool guys, and I was deathly afraid of them at first, because I was like, I don't know, I just didn't know them. I just didn't know who they were. I didn't know what they wanted. I didn't know if they would just, like, blow my shit up. But they were some of the first people I'd ever had any contact with purely through 2B2T. And they were cool. That blew me away. That just blew me away. I couldn't believe there were cool people who you could just trust. And we didn't have any prior connections. No, they had no incentive to care. They could and should have just griefed the shit out of me, and they didn't. And I ended up making some friends that I still talk to this day. Like, I just talked to Exalted Spartans the other night, and I hadn't seen him in game in almost 6 or 7 years. I think the last time I saw Exalted Spartans in game was Space Valkyria, and that was in like 2015. So clearly, you know, sometimes these friendships just go on. You know, they're an out of game experience sometimes, and that's okay. Let's stack this like 7 times. There we go. So yeah, find yourself friends who you can really kind of just relax around. Even if you meet them through 2B2T, like, they're people worth knowing. Do I know Kingaros? No, I do not. Also, sorry if I'm not, like, addressing chat all that much. When I get into a storytelling kind of mood, I'm more focused on that than anything else. So, if you have questions, I'll try and get to them, but, like, I'm very likely not gonna. So, like, try posting them in the comments. I will get to them after the stream, I swear. But, yeah. So that was them. They showed up to my base around Christmas of 2012. And, I thought the world was gonna end. And, speaking of the world ending, for those of you who are old enough to remember, there was one dumb, absolute pants-on-head retarded thing going around, and that was the Mayan calendar prophecy. I mean, I guess it was a prophecy. Hands up if you remember the Mayan calendar dumb bullshit psyop, because I literally have no better way to describe the Mayan calendar kerfuffle. So, for those of you who are too young or don't remember or whatever, the Mayan calendar stopped predicting shit, and it was apparently a very accurate calendar. It stopped predicting things in 2012. Well, the first thing any rational person should ask is, who gives a shit? The Mayans died out thousands of years ago. And the answer is yes, exactly. Who gives a shit? The Mayan calendar didn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things. The world was not and did not end in 2012. It didn't end on December 21st, 2012, like the dumbass calendar predicted. I guess that's just as far out as the people back then decided to go and predict. I mean, realistically, like, they weren't gonna exist that long anyway. So, you know, who cared? But, you know, I don't know if the Mayans played 2B2T or something, but the dumbest, fuckiest, most amazing act of coincidence occurred on December 20th. Not the 21st, like the calendar predicted, but the 20th, 2012. So it's important to remember that 2B2T ran on Bucket, and Bucket was not terribly stable. Bucket had a lot of bugs. Sometimes plugins would just inexplicably break. And on December 20th, 2012, No Cheat Plus broke for no damn reason. Nobody knows why. Barely anyone remembers this incident, but I was there for it. No Cheat Plus stopped functioning entirely. You could fly, you could speed hack, you could teleport, you could no-clip teleport, you could do all sorts of crazy shit. And people just, I don't know, for maybe about 24 hours or so, people took advantage of it. It was absolutely nuts. But it was the most fun I'd had on 2B2T to date at that time. And yeah, the Mayan calendar predicted the day that 2B2T's map would be bum-fizzled by a No Cheat Plus failure. And then Housemaster promptly realized, oh shit, things not working. And then rebooted the server and everything was normal again. It was a very sad day, but hey, you know, we got to fly on 2B2T years before Elytra were a thing. So, you know, there's that. And, yeah, that's all that was. It was pretty interesting, but it was also really kind of fleeting, because there really weren't many dupes you could take advantage of at the time. And No Cheat Plus being broken for only 24 hours wasn't the end of the world, despite what you might think. And yeah, that's really all it was. Not a whole hell of a lot happened. And we ushered in 2013, mostly event-free, mostly happening-free. It was just kind of a thing. It was just interesting. And the Redstone update occurred, I want to say March 2013. So for a while there, we had to just put up with the crappy 1.4 update, which had like 7 or 8 different iterations. They just kept updating 1.4. It was baffling. It just got to the point where I was like, hey, just give us 1.5. Just like, stop fucking giving us crazy shit nobody wants. But we did finally get 1.5. But there was a feature in 1.4 that was delayed until 1.5. And it was a feature that none of us knew that we wanted. But boy howdy, would we want it so very badly. This feature was the ability for entities to pass through portals, which up till that point was impossible. Entities could not and would not pass through any type of portal, end portal, nether portal, any of that. And portals were, for the most part, irrelevant. Until suddenly you could make mobs, and most importantly, chest carts, pass through nether portals. And this opened up a Pandora's box like you wouldn't believe. A bigger Pandora's box than the book hacks. Now, remember, at this time, I'd only ever seen the book hacks. I hadn't seen Pop Bob's Reign of Terror firsthand. So, while in retrospect, I would say Pop Bob's Reign of Terror was a bigger Pandora's box, this was the first Pandora's box that I actively lived through. Because the minecart nether portal dupe of 2013, the 1.5 minecart dupe, this fucking dupe lasted like, I want to say about 3 months. And it wasn't the sort of thing people knew about right away. Even though when 1.5 dropped, technically it was immediately legal. But it took until, I want to say, April, May 2013 before people really started to piece together, oh, this is a thing. Oh, God. Oh my God. This breaks the server. This breaks the economy. Because items really didn't have any kind of meaning. I distinctly remember killing pigmen during the book hacks just to be able to make god apples. Because you could make god apples. They were brand new. And I kind of recognized their significance, but they were just so gosh damned expensive at the time. I just kind of figured, you know, nobody will ever be able to run around carrying stacks of god apples. Yuck. Yeah, that's I'll take quotes that aged like milk for 500, Alex. And yeah, the minecart 1.5 dupe ensured that very thing came to pass. You could indeed carry stacks upon stacks upon stacks of just whatever you wanted. If you could dupe it, you could have it. It was yours forever. Yours for the taking. And again, this is like all dupes, this was a very hush-hush thing. I want to say people figured it out right away from the advent of 1.5, but it just kind of, it stayed hush-hush at first. Actually, I want to go under. It stayed hush-hush for a while. But like clockwork, it just proliferated like you wouldn't believe. The next thing I knew, one of my friends, I'd made a friend over the course of the prior few months. Her name was Cytotoxic T-Cell. You might remember her from the player skulls that were circulated like mad, because Cytotoxic T-Cell's player head was one of those heads that everybody had. And Sato, she was an angel. She showed me the 1.5 dupe. She showed me a bunch of other crazy little things that really weren't of any real value. But before she showed me the 1.5 minecart dupe, she made an exodus back to spawn on an alt. And at this time, I had purchased my very first alt. This was still around the beginnings of 1.5. And I was like, oh, hey, Saito, I'll meet you at spawn. I have an alt now. And she's like, oh, okay, you know, we'll meet up. And she brought me a set of god armor. Now, I'd never had a set of god armor at the time. Never had one. That was just too prohibitively expensive, and it was so difficult to make because redstone, or enchanting was very hit or miss. They changed enchanting in 1.3, and it just became... It was too difficult to get god armor, and they just added the anvil in a sort of vain attempt to make things like god armor and whatnot possible. And I don't really think they succeeded. I really don't think they succeeded with the anvil right away. The anvil was... It was just too fucky. It got too expensive to repair right away. Shit. Not tall enough. And yeah, it was a very unwieldy kind of mechanic. But people had god armor from previous updates, and, you know, they would circulate that. And it was very, very precious. And so she wanted to kill herself and go back to her base. And Saito was like, hey, you know, I don't have the ender chest room. Do you want my god armor? And I'm like, oh, do I ever? Yes, please. And she's like, okay. And so she kills herself, gives me her god armor, and I'm like, I will cherish it forever. Or until the next time I get into a fight. Which would be very, very soon. For you see, right around April, no, it was May, that's it. Right around May 2013, I was like, huh, you know, there's a very famous landmark near my spawn base that I've never been to. 2K. And I'm like, 2K, yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna go check out 2K. What's there? I don't know, everybody's talking about 2K for some reason. Little did I know, the first incursion was going on. As in, Sato 86 incursions. You know, the famous one. And that's of course why everybody was talking about 2K, because that's where they were based. And I was like, you know, I've got this set of god armor now. I should make something of it. I should go punish some new fags, because I'm big and bad and I can do that. Because I had a set of god armor and I thought I was special. And I get there. I get to 2K. I mean, it's literally a stone's throw away, so it's not hard to find. And I'm like, huh, wow, this place is an absolute disaster. It's just a giant lava cast. Why would anyone ever want to come here? I knew that it had been a former Face Punch base, but I knew nobody was living there. Or I thought nobody was living there. But there was somebody living there. His name was Trotum. and he was naked. And Trottem came up to me, and he was like, hey man, you got any food? And I was immediately like, oh, you're one of them. You're a new fag. Well, I'll have to deal with you. And I was like, no, I have no food for you. There is nothing for you here, Trottem. Get the fuck out of here. You better run. And I just kept warning him, and he was like, no, man, I need food. And I'm like, no, you need to run. And he's like, no, man, help me. And I'm like, no. Okay, I'll help you, all right. I'll help you into an early grave. And so I killed Trottem. Now, Trottem was nobody special. But Sato, yes, that Sato, was all like, hey, what happened to Trottem? Who's this berserker guy? That was the name of my alt. And I was like, yeah, that's right, I killed your pet. What you gonna do about it? And so Sato shows up. He comes through another portal. And I'm like, oh shit. Oh shit. Because I could see that he had gear and that he was probably not friendly. And I was like, okay, my armor's kind of damaged. I better retreat. And so I fled. And I ran. And I ran so far away. And I ran all night and day. And I gave Sato the slip. Lucky me, I got away with my life. But it was a strategic retreat, because the armor Saito had given me was just damaged, but I knew it could be repaired. And as luck would have it, I stumbled into one of the old chunks that Housemaster had deleted. And it had regenerated with a stronghold. But it wasn't just a stronghold. It had a zombie spawner and grinder in it. And so people were like, hey, let's make a zombie grinder here. And I'm like, hey, that's a nice zombie grinder you guys have there. And I killed the people there and took over their grinder and repaired my armor. And I rested for a day, and I came back the next day. And I went to 2K, and I was like, hey, Sato, I'm back. And he's like, oh, you're that dude from the other day. What, you come back? And I was like, yes, I have. Let's do this. And I fought him. And I swung my sword. And he swung his sword. And we sat there with our Notice fueled aimbot clients. And we just wailed on each other. And his armor was close to breaking. My armor was close to breaking. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to win this. Yeah, I'm going to win this. And he reaches for a golden apple. And he's trying to eat it. And little did I know, his Brazilian internet would be the thing that saved my life. Whoops, I actually want this over a block. No, 2 blocks. And he lags out. And because he lagged out, and only because he lagged out, I ended up winning that fight. It was very much a fight I had no right to win. Because when I killed Sato, mind you, I didn't know who he was. I didn't care. Nobody, we didn't know each other. We had no affiliation, none of that. And when I killed him, he spilled items out like a fucking piñata. And before I knew it, I had a stack of beacons, 2 stacks of god apples, 3 sets of god armor, mind you. And I knew Sato was a new fag. I knew he had no prior affiliations with anyone. I'd never seen him before. I'd been on the server a good 8 or 9 months. Or no, I'd already been on the server a full year by that point. That's right. And I was like, who in the hell is this guy? How does he have so many items? What is going on here? Shenanigans are afoot. But nobody in chat knew anything. nobody in chat would tell me anything. But the one person who reacted was, of all people, Pyrobite. And he was like, Sato, who killed you? Sato, what happened? I will avenge you. And then a friend of Sato, Coldwave, logged in just by complete accident. And I was like, oh shit, I'm out. I don't want more people showing up. And he's like, nah, man, I'm friendly. Come on. And I swear, I knew he knew that I killed Sato. And I was like, nope. I'm not getting into another fight. Like, I know this is a fight I can't win. I know you people are armed to the teeth. I'm out. And yeah, sure enough, that was definitely the right call to make. 'Cause as it turns out, this group that I'd suddenly picked a fight with were the Valkyrians. And they discovered the minecart 1.5 dupe. Specifically Kino Rana. And I think Pyrobite helped. And they had gobs and gobs and gobs of items. They were more armed to the teeth than I think any other group at that time. Even Pop Bob would have had to steer clear of them, or he'd, give them some leeway. Just because even they could have ganged up on and killed Pop Bob at that time. Now, I believe Pop Bob knew about the exploit and had abused it to make inf items, and yeah, I think he was just making inf items at the time. But yeah, this is where the infinite items were birthed as well. And it was just an absolute clusterfuck. People who had shit, who previously would have nothing, were like gods overnight. And it was an absolutely topsy-turvy world inside 5 or 6 days. And it was glorious, but it was like frightening, because you had no idea why anything was happening, what was going on. Nobody would tell you anything. Everything was kept very hush-hush back in those days. And just, it was a nightmare. It was an information war more than anything else. And now suddenly I had an entire group of like 15 people on my ass overnight because I killed one of their members, and they were like, yeah, that killer, that Jack the Ripper guy, yeah, let's go after him. And I was like, oh shit, who have I pissed off? Who are these people? And it was just nuts. It was what a time to be alive that was. Whoops. What a time to be alive. And yeah, that's the story of how I met the Valkyrians and how I ended up becoming a wanted man for, I don't know, like a few months. But funny enough, as fate would have it, even though initially Pyro and Sato were hostile to me, I ended up talking more and more with them after killing them. Or killing Sato. I never got to kill Pyro. And funny enough, we grew to be amicable toward one another, and it was in a weird sort of, I don't know, we had a mutual interest in some things. And then around this time, I started building the Sky Temple of Autism in July 2013. And I started showing Pyro and Sato and other people, and they were like, holy crap, Jack, that's actually really cool. And we just kind of mellowed toward one another. It was very weird. And then finally it happened. The Notice client stopped being supported in July 2013. And Sato and Pyro had their own private client. And Pyro was gracious enough to say, okay, I might consider giving you my client, But of course, I was still wary of like player-made code, because you know you don't just run player-made code, like unless you're mentally retarded. You know, you're just begging for a bad time. And I just wasn't sure what to think of it. But something told me that it would be okay. I don't know why. Something just told me it would be okay. But before I ran Pyro's client for the first time, there's another client that I would end up coming into possession of. One of my friends that I'd made through Snacky gave me access to it, and he said that, Jack, there's this really cool exploit. You gotta try it out. But it's currently only in this one public client. It was called Energetic. And we only used that thing for maybe like a week. Because another client ended up getting it, and it was also a public client. It was called Kinky. And Kinky is one of the few clients that I would come to use, like one of the few public clients that would be worth anything for a very long time. And Kinky had the spawn teleport exploit. Now let me tell you, spawn teleport was amazing. Spawn teleport was like one of the wackiest exploits I'd ever seen. The way it worked was that spawn teleport would set your value of your movement, because every time you move, you have to tell the server, hey, I'm moving here. Hey, this is where I'm going. And the server has to okay that movement. And for an entire year, this exploit would just be legal. For an entire year, it was nuts. Actually, I'm pretty sure it was legal for longer than a year. But, you know, who's counting? And spawn teleport, all it did, it just worked by simply setting your position to not a number. Nan, as it was called. NAN, not a number. And this would allow the server to completely lose track of your position. It wouldn't know where to set you. It wouldn't know what to do with you. It wouldn't know where you are. It would just say, oh shit, what are you doing? I'm gonna kick you from the server. So it did. It would kick you from the server. Now, ordinarily, an exploit that kicks you from the server would be useless. Ordinarily. But this was no ordinary exploit. This was spawn teleport. And because you still didn't have a valid location upon relogging, because, you know, back in those days, you could rejoin the server instantly. The server would go, oh shit, I don't know where to put him. Where's this player going? Who are they? Where should they be? Let's just default them. Oh shit. My fingers are getting stupid again. Anyway, so it would set you back to world spawn, and thus the name spawn teleport. You could always reliably go back to spawn, no matter where you were, no matter what you did, no matter how far out you were, no matter what dimension you were in. You could always go back to spawn. This meant an unbridled age of exploration and trading was now suddenly viable, because people from all over could always end up back at spawn. And I'd had a base out in the millions for about almost a year at this point. And, you know, I was pretty well untouchable. Now, mind you, the plug-in to prevent the nether roof, to cuck the nether roof entirely, had already been put in place. So there was no nether roof at this time, which meant that if you wanted to go back to, you know, in my case, the lands, I would hop in the end portal, and using my bed, it would, you know, return me to my spawn location and just go from there. But pretty soon, that would be, well, let's just say that would be impossible. For you see, Kinky had another exploit. It was called Flight. But it wasn't just any flight. It was no cheat flight. And I was like, oh hey, we run no cheat. Maybe, just maybe, this will allow me to fly again. And so I run no cheat flight. And it doesn't fucking work. No shock there. If you were shocked, like, most exploits, most workarounds, most bypasses don't fucking work. Unless they're extremely private and secret, they just generally don't work. That's just how it is. But you know what no cheat bypass flight did do? Yeah, it separated me from my bed. Very, very weird thing. I want to say it was a primitive version of bed god mode, but of course this was many years before bed god mode, so who really knows? I couldn't tell you what the original intent of this exploit was, just that it separated me from my bed. And I ended up figuring out that it was no cheat fly, the no cheat fly bypass that did it, because later on at Valkyria, a friend would try the same thing in Kinky, and he would spawn teleport back to spawn, and then when he hopped in the end portal, he couldn't return to Valkyria. And as it turns out, it's because he also tried the bed god mode fly exploit or whatever, the fly bypass. And as a result, it cucked him from his bed, and, you know, that's pretty well what I figured happened. But sadly, I would try this exploit blind. And I ended up going back to spawn. You know, the spawn teleport thing worked. Like, that blew me away. The fact that Kinky, a completely public client, had a working spawn teleport, and that people could use it. Everyone could use it. This was an unprecedented age of exploration, because people could go anywhere and always return to spawn. It was catching on quick. Yeah, wow. Suddenly, I wanted to meet people that I'd only talked to in chat. And one of the people I'd met was Branillan. And Branillan was one of the people who turned me on to the exploit in the first place. And he was like, yeah, this is revolutionary, Jack. And of course, he was completely right. It was revolutionary. And I couldn't believe that this was a thing. That such a major oversight was legal. That this hadn't been fixed. And let me tell you, it would stay legal for a long time. A lot longer than it should have. Oh shit. Too long. Let's stack this maybe 20 blocks. No, still too long. 10. There we go. And spawn teleport is literally the reason Valkyria rose to the prominence that it would end up rising to. Simply because all of us could join Valkyria, we could sleep there, and then go back to spawn and fuck around at the drop of a hat. And people loved just being able to do anything they wanted. We could organize as a group, and we could keep spawn under constant siege. It was kind of a lot like the modern day, how there's always someone at spawn in the modern day. But of course, this was before that. So it was something that I don't think anybody could have predicted would be as big as it did. As big as it would become. It was phenomenal. Just absolutely phenomenal. And I tried spawn teleport for the very first time, and I meet up with Brynillan, and he gives me Endstone. And he gives me the 2B2T newspaper. And he gives me all this crazy shit that I'd never had access to and that I would otherwise never have had access to. And he's like, take care of it, Jack. You know, this stuff's valuable. Because the end was still shut down. And, you know, the newspaper was a relatively new idea. And it was an interesting way people would communicate. There we go. And wouldn't you know it, I go back. I had yet to try the flyby pass, but I was about to try the flyby pass. So my first successful teleport to spawn nets me Endstone and the 2B2T newspaper, and I was able to duplicate them, and you know, everything was cool. And on my next successful teleport to spawn, I tried it on a whim. But I'd already tried the flyby pass. And I lost connection to my bed. And I'd completely lost connection to my base at 4,000,000 because there was now no nether roof. And the flyby pass severed me from my bed entirely, which meant the end portal would not return me. And it dumped me back out at spawn again. And I was lightly armed. I had some shit in my inner chest. But that was it. I had no idea just how screwed I'd accidentally made myself. And little did I also know that because of IGN, yes, the website, IGN, they made a video on the top 10 most amazing spawns in Minecraft. And wouldn't you know it, fucking 2B2T was in that list for, you know, obvious reasons. And this brought a wave of players on the heels of the minecart dupe. This made a bunch of people suddenly want to play 2B2T. And oddly enough, even though none of us would know it, I want to say the IGN invasion, it was probably one of the most influential invasions. Because this invasion gave us the man himself. Everybody attributes the camping rusher to the transformation in 2016. But the camping rusher was only half the equation. The other half of the equation was given to us in 2013 during the IGN invasion. The man himself, Silent Pedro, joined 2B2T for the first time at this time. Now, I wouldn't know who he was. I wouldn't meet him for another year. But this is how Fit would come to be on the server in the first place. Back then, he was just Silent Pedro. Nobody knew who he was. He played vanilla. He kept to himself. And that was pretty much it. Not really a whole lot to say about him. Just that the IGN invasion of 2013 is what brought Fit to the shores of 2B2T. And the server would never be the same. Even though the seeds had just been planted, the server would never be the same. Now, everybody lamented the fact that these people just showed up out of nowhere. Nobody liked the fact that all these new fags just suddenly poured into the server like mad, like a pox, like a swarm of locusts. Because we went from having 20-something, 30-something players to having 120-something players. And it was nothing short of obnoxious. And of course, like all the new players, they didn't know what anything did, they didn't know who anyone was. We showed up in mass to try and kill them at spawn, but eventually that kind of got boring, and, you know, we left them alone. Most of them would get bored, most of them would leave, none of them would stick around except for a handful of people, Fit being one of them. And yeah, it was a revolutionary thing that none of us knew would be as revolutionary. It was just something else. Let's cut over this way. Finally caught a stream. Oh, good. I'm going to take a slight break telling the story just for a second here. I'm going to catch up with the chat. Silent Pedro joined because of the IGN vid. Yes, he did. No such thing. Yeah, the IGN video. Caught the stream. Holy hell. Hi, chat. Yeah. Wow, 69 people watching. Nice. Was I the only person basing in the millions? Probably not. Imp's base had already been founded, and they were about 3 million away from me, and they were oddly enough in the same quad. Imperator's base was, I want to say, 2 million. Yeah, about 2 million something away from me. They were my closest neighbors, and I never knew it. Imp Space was something. But we'll get to Imp Space later. At this time, Imperator's base was still a heavily guarded secret. And it was still very active, too. How long do I think it would have taken to go back to home from spawn? Oh god, over a year. Easily over a year. Because I would have had to have walked through the open nether. I couldn't run. I couldn't go without stopping. It would have just been an absolute nightmare. But worry not. We get back to the lands eventually. Let's go about 57 that way. See how close that puts us. Oh wow. Like almost right on the dot. But yeah, the lands would not be left forever. So we have the IGN invasion, and it's just terrible. It's just terrible. Or so we thought. Ooh, actually, this might be all... Well, I'll just make it curve up. One of the big things about the IGN invasion is that it kind of taught us that people, you know, oh, and it also started the second incursion, by the way. It kind of taught us that people were willing to band together to fuck up new players. As funny and silly as it sounds, people are indeed willing to drop what they're doing in the face of an invasion like the IGN invasion. They are willing to just all go back to spawn, and we had spawn teleport, so we could do that. They were just willing to go back to spawn and form what was essentially a miniature army and just kill new fags. That's it. No reward, no medal, no parades. Like, people were willing to just decimate the armies of the newest invasion. And I swear to God, they were armies. There were that many of them. And we just wanted to keep them off the server as best we could. Seems kind of silly in retrospect, but, you know, it ties people together, you know? A good invasion, it's like people going Christmas caroling. It's a thing people do, and it ties them together in a weird way. And, like, it's not the sort of thing you would expect people to want to do, but they enjoy doing it anyway. And so, yeah, murdering new fags relentlessly during an invasion is like Christmas caroling on 2B2T. That's really, like, the best explanation I can give. Oh, wait, no, I want to go this way. Or, well, no. Shit. I want it to come out here. So, yeah, that was a thing people did. Oh, this is the wrong way. There we go. Bring it up one more block. Yeah, perfect. And let's see now. So this started the second incursion. And that was vital because now I was without a home. But you know who was there fighting the second incursion? Sato and Pyro. And because I had begun growing closer to them, I showed up at spawn. And of course, you know, the call to arms was heated. And they were like, hey, do you want to help us, you know, kill new players? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Oh, by the way, you know, I don't have a base anymore, guys. I kind of sort of got separated from it. Could I live with you guys? And they were like, oh, shit. Rip. Yeah, you can live with us, Jack. And I was just blown away, because, like, I thought for sure Pyro would say no. And Sato was like, nah, man, if you're here to help, sure. Sure, we'll be happy to base. And, funny enough, Drew Bookman had just griefed Valkyria for the very first time. And because of that, Sato and Pyro were out of a base too, and had been for about a month, which is why they were at spawn starting the second incursion, because they didn't have anything better to do, and there was an invasion. So it made sense to kind of, you know, do something about it. And it gave them purpose, and it made them enjoy playing the server, which is a bit of a rarity, because I don't really remember Pyro ever truly enjoying the server all that much, but he enjoyed shooting people, running around, claiming his kinghood, you know, stuff like that. And, yeah, I just enjoyed their antics. Pyro also showed off the glide exploit, and gliding was interesting. We'll get to glide eventually. Gliding was important and was viable all the way until the end of Valkyria. Or, Space Valkyria, sorry. Gliding was an exploit one could do until the end of Space Valkyria. It was that interesting, that prominent. But, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself on that one. Yeah, I guess that'll be there. So yes, you could you could glide at that time, and Pyro was happy to show it off. And yeah, it was just a very odd time. Just a very odd time. And eventually Sato comes to me after... Whoops. After, like, a week or two of us doing... Oh, shit. Yeah, after about a week or two of us doing the incursion, Sato comes to me and is like, hey, man, you know, we don't have a base either. Yeah, an iron trapdoor is not going to work, because that's going to be perpetually open. I need a thing that will stay waterlogged. I guess a fence gate's not bad. Yeah, it'll do. So yeah, he comes to me and says, hey, we don't have a base either. You know, we just recently had our base griefed by Drew Bookman. And I'm like, oh shit, how badly did he grief it? And he's like, well, you know, Drew left some things untouched. And I'm like, oh, well, you know, maybe that's... Maybe we can, you know, go back and rebuild. There we go. And he was like, no, we don't want to go back and rebuild. You know, what if he comes back? And I'm like, nah. Drew Bookman... Because apparently Drew Bookman was exiled from the Valkyrian group about a month earlier, before the IGN invasion. And Drew Bookman, you know, kind of just quit the server for a while there. And I was like, hey, if he's gone, you know, we can go back and rebuild Valkyria. It'll be really cool. I'm missing a base too. You know, we could all make Valkyria something really cool. And Sato at first was like, well, you know, okay, we can go back and survey the damage. And I'm like, yeah, that'll be cool. We can do that. And sure enough, we go back and Valkyria is like 80% intact. Like, Drew Bookman did a terrible job griefing it. It was like nothing. Not even hardly damaged. Some wooden structures, some woolen structures were destroyed. But the majority of it was still, you know, completely and totally viable. You could live there. No problem. And I was just like, yeah, this is a great idea. Let's base at Valkyria. And so we spent the rest of August and September inviting back all the older players who had been scared off by Drew Bookman, as well as just, I don't know, just making the place look nice. Or, well, actually, let's get a trapdoor. And so we... Damn it. We ventured back to Valkyria, rebuilt it, and made it this amazing... Oh shit, that's gonna splash everywhere. We just made it this nice little base. And it was a cozy sort of base. Because, like, everybody pitched in and rebuilt it. And it was a crazy sort of hodgepodge. Like, it wasn't well built, but it had a little touch of everybody in it. I don't know the best way to put it. It was like a collage, if you will. It was ugly in places, but it was our ugly, you know? And before we knew it, Valkyria had some I want to say some 30-something people living at it. And what made it so interesting was that Valkyria was one of the first places I can remember, I think one of the first places ever, to be a completely self-sufficient base that nobody had really met anyone else. My frame rate. Ugh. Anyway, nobody had really met anyone else before coming to Valkyria. So none of us had any ties to each other. We had no incentive to make a base and cooperate and live together. We all met exclusively through 2B2T. But we made it work anyway. And, you know, it was something special. It was a certain kind of unity that none of us could really have made happen by ourselves. It was a group chaos, if you will. But despite that, I don't know how to put it. It was just so... It was magnificent how we could make it our own, you know? There was nothing stopping us from turning on each other and griefing the whole place, and yet we never did. We liked basing with each other despite never up to that point knowing each other. And it was one of the first major bases on the server to do that. And I think because we could go to spawn with spawn teleport so readily, that it ended up being so interesting. I think that distracted a lot from the monotony of living at a base that was as ugly as Valkyria. But you know, it had this spirit to it that you just can't quite capture. And there were dozens and dozens of Valkyria clones that would pop up over the years, but none of them quite had the spirit of the original Valkyria. Because the original Valkyria was spontaneous and organic. And you could just fuck around there for hours on end. And there was always somebody doing something wacky. I met two guys named Fubster and Pompano. I met them at spawn, and I would never have met them had we not had spawn teleport. And because of spawn teleport, I was like, you know, you guys are cool. You should come back to Valkyria. And they were like, okay, well, what's that? And they were like, oh, this is a pretty cool little base. Yeah, sure, you know, we'll live here. And they didn't fuck it up. And they were perfectly happy to continue going back to spawn, because they could do that. They could teleport there. We taught them how. And they enjoyed it. They would take people hostage. They would do all sorts of crazy antics. I love Fubster and Pompano. And they were a real treasure. I don't know how else to describe them. Or no, yeah, right there. And for a good 3 or 4 months, that's basically what we did. Or no, it wasn't 3 or 4 months. It was two or 3 months. That was it. And then we got the 1.6 update. And Mojang added a feature to 1.6 that very nearly killed the server. And this is the first time I saw the server become a ghost town. Mojang added the structure. It was the structure saving feature. And structure saving basically made things like witch huts, world gen shit like that. It made those items, or those objects, permanent meaning that they would be independent of the seed. They would generate according to the seed, but then they would, like, they would stay where they were even though we'd updated. So despite the seed changing, the world gen, you would still see, you know, the same structures would still show up. So I think that kind of contributed to 2B2T's uniqueness, which is kind of why you can't generate your own 2B2T, even using the same seed. Because, like, there are just too many different biome changes and other things that were preserved by the structure-saving mechanic. But because of the size of the server at this time, the server would go from like 18 to 20 TPS to 0 at breakneck speed. It was nuts. Yeah, so farms wouldn't break due to new seeds. That was kind of the reason. But this breakneck lag that suddenly hit out of nowhere, it was unbearable. Nobody could play. It was, like I said, 0, 18 to 20 TPS to 0 inside a second. And you just had to deal with it. And horses were brand new. And you couldn't ride them because horses were purely server side. So as a result, you would stutter. You would rubber band and you would stutter. And you would stutter step and you would rubber band. And making any progress was impossible. Which was really sad because it was around this time we were able to get horses on the nether roof. Finally. The nether roof had been off limits for almost a year at this point. And you couldn't ride a horse up there, just about. Because of the stutter step lag. It was absurd. It was funny, but it was awful. It was painful. I remember making like 30 kilometers progress on the nether roof, and it was only me, Pyro, and Tristan. This is also around the time I met Tristan, too. Me, Pyro, and Tristan knew about the nether roof horse thing. And I remember only being able to make about 30 kilometers progress in one afternoon simply because you couldn't go anywhere. The stutter step lag was insane. I chewed through like 3 movies. I found a movie or 2 on YouTube to watch. And it was insane. You couldn't go anywhere. I barely made it back to Valkyria. Because I didn't want to lose my horse. I found a really fast horse. I didn't want to teleport back to Valkyria because I knew that would, you know, I'd lose that good horse. And yeah, that was unacceptable. And so we began to stage a plan to get back onto, or get back to the lands using the horse nether roof method. And finally, House figured out what was causing the lag. And he disabled the structure save mechanic. And oh my god, the difference was night and day. So glad he disabled that shit, because it just... I remember the very first time I was able to sleep through the night on 2B2T was purely because there were maybe 2 other people online. And that was it. And, like, we wouldn't see that until right before Rusher. Only 2 or 3 people online. Can you imagine? And this was in 2013. We genuinely thought the server was dead. Like, it was the end of days. Like, that's what we thought. It was just so sad. But thankfully it wasn't. And we ended up getting a relatively normal 2B2T back. And finally, at the end of this structure-saving madness, we ended up getting to set our plan in motion. We were finally able to ride our horses back to the lands on the nether roof. Damn it. Shit. There we go. There we go. And so, that's the story of how I got stranded at spawn by complete accident. I'll put it there. We got to then found what was essentially an empire for a very brief time. And we got to eventually employ a very unique exploit to return to my 4 million base after about, I want to say, 5 months. Or no, that was November. No, that was October. Yeah, that was October we rode back, and I got stranded in August, so that was only about 2.5 months. But yeah, I thought I was never going to get to see the lands ever again. Because, you know, I was fucked, supposedly. But despite all that, we were able to actually make things work. And, you know, I wouldn't trade those memories for anything. Those were some wacky times. I met some wacky people. I got to be part of an interesting and amazing base. And it made server history. I don't really know how else to put it. It was something else. Oh shit, please don't have fucked up. Oh, shoot. Okay. Simple fix. Perfect. Okay. We don't want any of the fish getting out of here. And in total, it only took about 2 days of riding on the nether roof non-stop because we could make so much faster progress with horses. And obviously the lag storm was finally over. It was finally possible to return home. And I want to say I brought 5 or so other people with me, including, I tried to bring Sato and Pyro, but they were like, nah, we don't want to ride out to 1 million something base, you know. Their reaction, oh man, everybody loved what I'd done with the lands. I had already, I completed the Sky Temple of Autism around this time, November 2013. And only because I could ride back there and actually be there in person. And because of that, it worked out. It just worked. Sometimes life just works out. Sometimes it doesn't. That's unfortunately how it goes. But yeah, that puts us at about November 2013. We get 1.7, I want to say, at about this time. And the plugin that Tristan and Pyro made that gave them their back door, Pyro spawns in a bunch of imps using this. Eventually their plugin is found and it's removed, so they don't get to make very many imps. But remember these imps, they come in important later in 2 years. You'll see. And we can't ride on the nether roof anymore, you just get kicked from the, you get dismounted from the horse and teleported down, so you're no longer able to ride. And yeah, that's really kind of the end of the fun exploited times for a bit. Not permanently, but for a bit. Valkyria is then griefed because I believe Pop Bob was invited. And that was really kind of just the end of the line. When Pop Bob shows up to the party, that is very much it. Drew Bookman came back right before we rode on the nether roof, and he kept threatening to find and grief Valkyria again because he'd forgotten the chords, but like it wasn't long before he figured it out. And unfortunately, Pop Bob also figured out that he could ride a horse on the nether roof, so that kind of allowed him access to my base. And yeah, that was a very unfortunate time. That's how Pop Bob got to the lands too. And that's important because of how the lands would ultimately fall. Pop Bob had gotten an alt there using the horses to ride, to wherever. We spotted him like twice, I want to say. But he was never caught by us, even though we were all armed to the teeth and constantly prepared to fight him. He was just too afraid to really go all out at us. And so he just sort of logged out there and never did anything long term. But there was always the threat of a Pop Bob invasion or some shit. And yeah, that was that. He attacked some of my stash. What else did he do? Can you get into that? No, you can't. But you can if that's open. No, I don't want to. I don't want to waterlog that. No, you can't reach that. Fine. So yeah, that was everything pretty much. We got 1.7 later that year, and I made a giant map wall of the lands, which would come to be a much more famous base in the coming years. People wanted to visit it more and more. And yeah, that was pretty much it. That's that puts us at the end of 2013. So that's like all of 2012, all of 2013. I think that's a pretty good spot to stop. That's a pretty decent spot to end it at. Let's go up 30 blocks. So yeah, that's gonna be all the story time for today. Hopefully you all have an interesting bit of insight into how the server used to be. And yeah, that's oh shit. I cannot place that there. Okay, cool. Oh, these are not transparent. Shit. Okay, cool. But anyway, so that's everything. I'll catch up with chat here for a sec. I'll answer any questions in the next, like, 20 minutes. Imps you used as Space Valk. Yes, those are the very same. Remember those imps? They come in handy later. They's very importante. I will field any questions right now. Did Pop Bob eat the lands? Kind of. In a way, he is kind of responsible for the lands being defeated, but at the same time, I feel like it would probably have happened anyway, one way or another. So it's not like this was, you know... It wasn't foolproof. Like, we were gonna get hit eventually. It was just a matter of time. Shit, that didn't go out far enough. Okay. 1.7 update was the update that changed the world. Yeah, Acacia. Yeah. They added a bunch of world gen stuff. That was pretty nice. I liked it. Can you commentate history? I like how you commentate 2B2T history properly while also building complicated stuff. Yeah, talking about and recounting stories and stuff. It's just, it frees up part of my mind to just... I don't have to think hard about what I'm doing. Because sometimes I find that if I'm thinking about what I'm doing, I'll overthink it. The key to building is not thinking too hard. I think. I'm pretty sure that's how it is. Yeah. I think I am. For breakfast, of course that was fast. Like going to the world border now, yeah. Can I explain what Valkyria... Valkyria was just a group base that we all named. Sato named it Valkyria. The name was entirely his. I don't honestly know if it was supposed to be Valkyrie, because he loved using Norse stuff to name his stuff, because like the next follow-up base to Valkyria was Asgard, and then Fenrir and a bunch of other shit that's obviously Norse inspired. So I assume that was his naming scheme, but honestly I like the name Valkyria better, not Valkyrie, because Valkyrie doesn't really make sense on its own, because like the Valkyries were warriors. So I don't know. Just my personal opinion. But I'm happy it ended up the way it did. Okay. 1.7 was a pretty good update. It was a very stable update. It was one of the last really stable updates we had. How did I get the rings and the... I just had the idea. It just came to me. I didn't really have it from anywhere. What builds am I going to do next? You'll see when I get there. That's a while from now. Are there publicly available world downloads of the lands? Yes, I have one. I will put it up. I'll put it up as a community post, just because that's something people want. And I'll put one up of Valkyria too, just so you all can check out Valkyria, because it was a really cool place. Also, Valkyria and the lands are on the archive, so you can check out that server if you wish. Jack, have I ever become a teacher or dream about... No, I don't care to be a teacher. Looks like Brazilian internet also won't work. Well, hey. Sato's Brazilian internet made us friends, I think. Story sounds like a Mafia boss stronghold being hit by a rival faction, only they just prepare for it. Yeah, I know. Alpha computer smells. I always said it like Valkyria. Yes, Valkyria. Valkyria. That's always how I've said it. That makes it official. If I've said it, it's official. That's how 2B2T history works now. I know it's a personal question, but do I make money from YouTube? I try to. Not much, but I try to. Make a Discord server. I actually already have a Discord server made by Super Jean. I don't want to advertise it too openly, just because it'll grow out of proportion way too quickly, in my opinion. But I will slowly start inviting people to said Discord server, so don't fret. You'll get your chance. Say Nico Nico Ni. Okay. 1.7 was nice. 1.8 was pretty okay because slime blocks. 1.8 was amazing for slime blocks. And Depth Strider. Depth Strider was introduced in 1.8. That made that update alone. If Depth Strider had been the only thing introduced, that would have made the 1.8 update perfectly amazing. But we also got slime blocks. Like, so much shit can be done with slime blocks, it's unreal. Slime blocks and strength got nerfed into the ground. Knockback was changed. Well, hey, you know, that's how it is. Send you the link. I might. I don't know. Who was Snacky North? He was just a friend. He joined before I did. He was very well known. Snacky North was a cool guy. That's really all I can say about him. Do I like X0XP? Honestly, no. X0XP was always a bit of a troublemaker. He was a kid when he joined 2B2T. And it shows. Like, he was too young and too immature for 2B2T, and I think it changed him for the worse. I think it stunted his growth. I really do. Have I ever spoken to Pop Bob? Once. Yes. Please send the link in chat. Maybe later. I'm not entirely certain I want to advertise that Discord just to anyone. Just because I want it to stay kind of managed and like everybody knows each other, you know? We will steadily grow it, but like I don't want it to explode out of hand, you know? Can I say Dark Meta loves Minecraft more than you do? No, I can't say that, I'm sorry. What does Pop Bob sound like? A bit of a holier-than-thou douchebag, from what I remember. Could I do a Terraria stream? Oh, yeah, I might do a Freeform Friday on Terraria one day. What's my opinion on the newer mobs? Polar bears from 1.10, parrots, foxes, dolphins, axolotls. The dolphins' utility is interesting, but all those other mobs are absolute garbage right now. Axolotls might be valuable, maybe. That's a pretty big maybe. Right now, the axolotl does nothing other than help you fight. And, yeah, like... I guess you could march into an ocean monument with, like, an army of axolotls. I guess you could. And then just destroy everything in sight. But, like, Why is my username Jack the Ripper? Because I was an edgy 15-year-old when I made the name, and by the time I realized it was cringe, like, it was already too late. People already knew me as it. People already called me Jack. And I really liked the name Jack a lot. So I figured, fuck it, I'm going to keep using it. So I keep using it. And I keep enjoying using it. And I'm going to keep enjoying using it. And you can't stop me. The end. Do you replace water with water? Eventually. What do I think about 1.17 and the 1.18 update? Not a fan of all the features and crap added in 1.17, but then the redone cave gen 1.18 is what this. Yeah, yeah. It's very underwhelming right now because there's not a whole lot to do with it. But the cave gen stuff in 1.18 should make it a lot better. I've tried my hardcore world, and like the new 1.8 or 1.17 caving stuff is interesting. In hardcore. But, I don't know. Oh, Benito Tortellini. Wow, that's a name I hadn't seen in a while. Yeah, I think Benito Tortellini also joined during the IGN update. Or the IGN, not update, the IGN invasion. I want to say that's when Benito joined. Benito was a very prominent map artist. Benito was a pretty interesting guy. I liked him enough. The Tortellini Library was like a famous place where he'd stored up a ton of map arts before the first major map art reset. There we go, that should get rid of that. Can I say such and such as... No, I'm not going to say that. All invasions were just true 2B2T updates. That kind of... I don't know. It's not cringe if you don't take yourself too seriously. Yeah, I try not to. I'm guilty of taking myself too seriously, I will say that. Oh shit, where's it going to land? Hey, it clipped me through, alright. I mean, I'm not perfect. I'm very guilty of doing shit like that. Oh wow, you can still clip through blocks like this? That's crazy. I thought when they added the cooldown that would stop. Can I introduce myself in Japanese? Yes. I can also tell you what I ate for breakfast this morning in Japanese, but that doesn't mean I'm going to do it. Just that I can do it. 1.16, yay or nay, somewhere in between. It made the nether way easier, are you sure? The end is still bare, yeah, I know. I'm hoping they will make a 1.19 or whatever and make that an end update. It needs an update, it really does. The end could use a biome overhaul just like the nether got. That would be some dope ass shit. I don't know if it'll ever happen though. Let's go out to about here. Will I ever add balconies or things that of that nature on the underside of the ring? No, I think the underside of the disc is going to stay the flotation rings. Like, there's no observation balconies or anything like that that I want to add. Like, I just want to keep it more of a pure aesthetic thing, because you're not going to go down there. Here's another dono since you... Oh, well, thank you, Gorgon Breath. Dude. 2 in 1... You really are the true MVP. I love you, man. Thank you, Gorgon Breath. Oh, no homo. Almost forgot to say that. Phew. Think I'll ever finish Space Valkyria? Yeah, of course I think I'll finish it. I'm gonna power through it till I do. Or no, there to right. 9 blocks, okay. I wouldn't dare leave this place unfinished anymore, just because, like, it's kind of my life's work at this point. Until I finish it and I'll move on to something else. Whoops. Okay. Cool. get this final tubing in place. And for those of you wondering, the tubes are just because they look cool. And like, imagine swimming through an entire maze of these tubes that'll just take you everywhere. Oh shit. Oh. Damn it. I gotta go over one. This is off kilter. Well, it's only one block. That's not that bad. What did Fit not tell us about Pop Bob? I have no idea. Watching this build is way more important than sleep. No, you should probably sleep dark meta, seriously. Do I have any certain enemies? Well, yeah, the Nerds Inc. people. Like, they very clearly do not like me and go out of their way to destroy anything I've ever done. But the Nerds Inc. people don't really matter to me anymore. Perfect. It's all connected up. Now then, who is that in my profile pic? Shinobu from the Monogatari series. Really great series, highly recommend. Didn't I ally with Tristan in Asgard too? Yeah. We were all allied and friends and shit. I mean, we were friends for years. He just was never really that on my side. Okay. I think it's because he had secrets and shit that he wanted hidden, and I was like hungry for secrets and stuff like that. So Tristan was always very elitist, is the problem. But oh well, what can you do? What anime do I advise if I haven't watched? Cowboy Bebop is a really great one. Yeah, I don't know. Did I read Berserk? Yes, I do. I love Berserk. I hope it continues in some fashion. Man, what happened with Berserk is so sad. Also, this distance fog. Let's crank up the view. Wow, it gives like this crazy atmosphere to everything. Frame rate's gonna chug here in a second. See, this is the effect that I wanted. Like, you can kind of see the outlines of everything. So yeah. Pretty cool shit. Wow, I especially like how the power station looks. You can swim down. Blah. God, my frame rate is so bad now. Optifine, where art thou? Wherefore art thou, Optifine? Man. It's come a long way in just a few months. I hope the end of the year isn't an optimistic date and I can actually make it by then. I don't know. Ah, well, either way, that's probably going to be the end of it for today. Thank you all to those who came out. Thank you to those who donated. Do I speak to Tristan? No, I don't. And yeah, that's going to do it. Well, that communications building, maybe the little satellite. I don't know. I'll think about stuff like that later. I want to kind of put that there. Well, I can't get the thing to be reversed. Oh well, whatever. Okay, see y'all later. Y'all have a good one. Take care. Thank y'all for coming out. See